Hi, and yeah, we're gonna talk about this. Welcome to Derry, Season 1, Episode 7, The Black Spot. I'm CJ Miller. I'm in Shreveport, Louisiana. Across the Red River is beautiful Bossier City, Louisiana. Please do come check us out. So, always lots of fun things to do. Hope your holiday season is going well. And wow, this was a very difficult um, episode to watch. One of the things that's happening with this particular season, this particular version of the story, and this is kind of like, um, I found it true for most of the episodes in here, is that wow, uh, they're a lot deeper than just, the original novel had a lot to do with children growing up and overcoming their childhood trauma, you know, that they had to deal with, you know, and uh, and it is, all spurred on by fear, or whatever, So that fear gives this monster its power. Now that's something that didn't appeal to me to the original uh, story that I saw, and the original story is a novel. I haven't read it yet. I need to. After watching this, I'm thinking that I'm going to, but it's going to be a pretty long read. It's yeah. That's one of the reasons why I was put off from reading it. It's like, wow, who's got time to read like that monster size story? But I've read some of Stephen King's long epic work before, and it's a good read, usually. So maybe I should get in there and read it, But let me tell you, the um, the original TV series with the Tim Curry or whatever. I loved the talent that was in it. I loved Annette O'Toole. She's been in a lot of things. Richard Thomas. I mean, there's just a lot of these actors. Even Seth Green was one of the children, And I think there's just something safe about recognizing and knowing the faces and everything, But um, it was a TV miniseries, And I was probably desensitized by then because don't think that my parents were horrible by letting me watch horror movies. Because they didn't just let me. I was just like there really just wasn't anything else to do, My history with horror movies begins with being like a little kid, maybe 7, 8 years old, whatever. I don't know. I was visiting my friend Jamie. I was spending the night at his house, and his parents had watched the Amityville Horror on HBO or something like that. That didn't do anything for me. It was a bunch of stuff being thrown around the house. That didn't really spook me out too much. That was kind of cool. So anyway, later on, I watched the movie with a better understanding of what that story was being told, and so it's like, wow, yeah, that's a yeah, ooh, yeah, and you know, but I certainly understood that it was being dramatized, uh, and then of course, what else? Yeah, we'd go visit family here or there. Maybe somebody I'd see a snippet of a horror movie here or there or something like that, but never really saw one. Never really saw one or understood. I'd hear from my friends or something like that. But the one that I saw, my sister and I, we went with the family. We went to visit our half brother who was raised with another family. He didn't live with us. He lived with his mom and his uncle and everything down in Lake Charles. So and he was about 9 or 10 years older than I was. So I was 9. He was about 18. So that yeah, we went with him and his girlfriend and his cousins and everything like that. They were down there, and we all went to see a double feature of Friday the 13th Part 1 and Part 2. So this was 1981. And we saw the double feature, and that was like my first horror movie, and it was like, wow, you know, I love it, and I loved it because it appealed to me for one thing because it's a good memory of me and my brother, and I don't have a lot of those, especially but I have a lot of memories with my sister. I was raised with my sister, but all of us together. So horror movies do that for me, bring me to that place. Especially this one movie called Phantasm, which is about brothers, and if you've not seen that movie, the reveal is that one of the brothers is dead or something like that, or gone or whatever. And then later on, they explore through. They just keep going with the phantasm, and it's like, well, the brother's not dead. He's in another dimension, interdimensional, blah blah blah. It's the whole story is about the whole franchise is about reconciling humanity and uh, balancing out the person's fantasy, which the mind kind of this all kind of ties in. The mind kind of the mind of the child tries to reconcile what's going on in the real world. Uh, Especially when the child's mind is not prepared, because I don't know, as kids we get uh, puppet shows and things like that. We don't really get a lot of real life, real talk. It was certainly not in the 70s and 80s. We watched the real world, we lived in it, we experienced it. We had big families, people fought, people yelled, fist fights and stuff like that. People sometimes tried to kill each other, and we would see all this, but we weren't being allowed to find reconciliation with that through the media uh, that was being allowed to us. I mean, like I was listening to songs about birds and things like that, whatever. And, Winnie the Pooh and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably one of the reasons why there's so many of those, childhood stories, and now they're making horror movies of all of them or whatever. But whatever, I don't know. But when I was a little kid, I understood that my fear, and I think I had that. This is like it is a creature that you take its power away by not being afraid of it anymore. You can demonstratize it. The same with Freddy Krueger or whatever. Those types of things, they never appealed to me. They never frightened me. Whatever. It's like, hey, we do whatever, cop out of a story, whatever. It's overcoming trauma, overcoming fear, overcoming that. Okay, I get it because I did that when I was a little kid, from like 4, 5, 6, maybe going into almost 7 years old or whatever. I was afraid of the dark. Afraid to be. Turn off the lights after dark or something like that, and my mind could only think of monsters. I knew that word monster. I don't know where it came from or how I got it or something like that, but and that's all I knew. But um, my little imagination, and I think Lou Ferrigno in the Incredible Hulk, I think his image kind of scared me a little bit. But yeah, I knew he was not a monster, and I knew that there were no such things as monsters. But and this was being like 5, 6 years old or whatever. I knew that. I knew there was no such thing as a monster. I knew that, but I was afraid to be alone in the dark, or to be in a dark room, even with my sister in the room, without some sort of light to look at. And here's why: nothing to do with anything that I was taught. It is the animus, the human instinct. When you are in a complete dark, when you're in complete darkness, you are vulnerable to nature's predators, you know, when you're out in the world. And so it's just instinct to be afraid of the dark and not have some sort of light source to keep uh, the predators at bay. That's all there is to it. But my mind, being that I wasn't a little boy living with cave people, but I lived in civility. I didn't understand that instinct, And so my mind just pulled together something called a confabulation, where you just kind of like make up your own little narrative in your own little head, your own little metaphor. I didn't even know the metaphor. I didn't know it was symbolism. I didn't know it was imagery, you know. But yeah, whatever. This is look at an amalgam of anything I could imagine that was remotely uh, alien or scary to me, or something like that, is what I would see in the dark, and blah 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 or whatever. And then my folks would be like, "Well, just think of Jesus. You know, He loves you. He'll protect you." And I was like, "That's so wonderful. I'm so glad Jesus loves me." But when I think of God and Jesus, it just reminds me that there's a devil, you know, and that's scary too. So, you know, whatever. It's just this. Here's the antidote: light. You have to have some sort of light if you're in total darkness or whatever. But anyway, I reconciled my fear uh, uh, of being in the dark. By the time I was 6 or 7 years old or something like that, it's fine, you know, whatever. There was, you know, because I realized it's very seldom that I'm ever in total pitch black darkness, you know, very seldom. So that's fine, you know. So unless something just really got to me, something that I watched or something, you know, then I was usually okay with that, you know. But yeah. So it didn't really do it for me. Even the Tim Curry and all those characters and everything like that. And then the movies, the remakes, they were a little better, but it was telling the same story. This is the story in between the main story. And it's an 8 episode, so there's one more episode. But this has gotten into uh, some really deep and dark truths of the society and the world that we live in, and how you know, the it has almost taken, he's almost become a metaphor, the fear of the governments and authority or something like that. He's become the fear that authority uses to create separation between classes and people. And you find out that basically the story of it, you know, the children and then the adults not believing or whatever, or not understanding, or you know, there's a whole class system that goes on there. So this is really, yeah, these are things that were being touched on probably in the book. I haven't read the book. I don't know how deep these little short story interludes in between that main action of the story happened, but they were able to pull 8 very serious, deep, um, you know, it is a pretty deep story. This is not just a boogeyman story. And by the time you get to episode 7, the black spot, you understand. Um, Also, the imagery in this particular season has been particularly graphic. That really didn't bother me, but the horror of the real world, that these things do happen, not the it story, not the supernatural stuff, but everything that happens around that supernatural. That stuff really does happen. You know, it happens today. You know, even in America. You know, we just don't always like to think about it or talk about it. You know, we have a lot of things that we've not resolved. Uh, as as a human being, you know, as a race of people living in societies, there's a lot that we still have to work on, you know, and that's what this is getting into. So, yeah, um, I'm not gonna spoil it for you, although not that you need to. I mean, there's spoilers all over. But yeah, Welcome to Derry. And you got a quick glimpse of me not wearing my hat back there, and I wasn't even doing a comb over. Yes, I don't have a lot of hair when I don't have a comb over. Did you catch it? Yay. Okay, so this is rated uh, small s for streaming on the small screen. Wonderful. Love and Light, and check it out. But God bless, you know. Oh, this actor is playing Dick Halloran from The Shining, originally played by Scatman Crothers, you know. Um, okay, love and light. God bless. hmm Good night.